This experience messed me up for a long time. When it happened, I was sharing an apartment in a not-so-nice suburb at the edge of the city. My roommate was away visiting family. I was trying to get rid of some old stuff. I had a few things I didn't need anymore, so I listed them on Craigslist. Pretty soon after I posted the listing, one guy messaged me about a coffee table I was selling. He wanted to pick it up that night, cash in hand. I moved the table near the door and waited. Around 9:15, I got a text. "I'm here." I stepped outside but didn't see anyone. There was no car on the street and nobody on the sidewalk. A minute passed, then another. I was about to go back inside when I noticed something. Movement near the curb, just at the edge of the yard. A man stepped out of the shadows from around the brick fencing of the building next door. He was just beelining it toward me without saying anything. That's when I saw it. Another shadow moving at the side of my house. Someone else was here. They had come from the back of the building around the side, and I barely caught the movement before they stopped, aware that I had seen them. I didn't think, I just acted. I turned and darted back inside, slamming the door and locking it in one motion. Less than a second later, I heard heavy footsteps bounding up the porch stairs. Then a loud bang. Something hit the door, hard. I grabbed my phone from my pocket and looked through the peephole. I saw the first guy staring at the door, his face covered by a hoodie. The second guy was standing behind him, looking off toward the street. The guy at the door started trying to unlock the doorknob with something. I could hear it rattling and his body pushed against the door. I yelled through the door that I was calling the police. A second later, both men took off, disappearing around the corner and into the night. I called the cops, but by the time they got there, the street was empty. No sign of them. I don't know what they wanted, if it was a robbery or if they were planning something worse. I ended up just donating the rest of my stuff from my apartment and haven't sold anything online since. When I was younger, I worked a lot as a babysitter. This happened one Saturday night when I was sitting for a family I'd worked for many times before. The parents had left for dinner. I was alone in their suburban home with the two kids asleep in their rooms. I spent some time reading and watching TV in the living room. Sometime later that night, I got a notification on my phone. It was a friend request on Instagram from an account named Loving Eyes. The profile was blank. No posts, no followers, no picture. I accepted the request and put my phone down, thinking it would turn out to be one of my friends creating a meme account or something. Within minutes, I received a direct message request from the account. It said, "I can see you." Then, a series of images arrived. One was a grainy photo of the front of the house taken from the street. It was so bizarre that I assumed it must have been a couple of my friends messing with me. I messaged the account back, bluffing that I knew who it was. About 5 minutes later, I received a reply. "You don't know who I am, but I know who you are." And then they had written my name. I started to double-check every door and window to make sure that they were locked. After an hour of tense waiting and having never heard back from the account, I convinced myself that the person had lost interest or that it was all a cruel prank I would hear about on Monday. Then, just as I was beginning to relax a little, I received one final message. "I'm coming inside." I went back downstairs and reached the living room window, pulling back the curtain and peering out into the dark yard. In the faint light, I caught a glimpse of a figure moving across the lawn. At that point, I decided I had to get help. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I explained that I had seen someone on the property and that I felt unsafe. I gave the address and described what had happened, mentioning the text and the images. The operator told me that officers would be dispatched immediately. I turned on every light I could find and barricaded myself in the children's room. Finally, the police arrived. They swept through the house quickly and found no one inside or outside on the property. They took the screenshots I had saved. but the account had been deleted. The parents were very understanding and grateful for my actions when they arrived home. To this day, I don't know who it was or what their intentions were. I try not to think too much about it, but sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I feel that same intense vulnerability wash over me again. I got asked to look after a rental property, a 3-floor New England home that was under renovation and between tenants. My job was just to swing by, take photos of the renovation updates, and maybe shovel the walkway if it snowed. The renovations were winding down, but no one was living in the building yet. One night I stopped by a little later than usual. I mostly went during the daytime hours, but I hadn't been over there yet this particular week. I parked out front, grabbed my set of keys, and let myself in through the front door. I did my usual walkthrough, checked that the windows were locked on each floor, and glanced into the empty apartments. The only thing left to do was to check the basement. When I stepped inside, switched on the light, and got to the bottom of the stairs, I immediately knew something was wrong. The back storage room door was cracked open. That door, I knew for a fact, had been closed before. I had never even opened it. That's when I heard something fall over in the storage room. It sounded like a broom that had been knocked over. Someone was in there. I turned and bolted up the basement stairs, slamming the door shut behind me and locking it. I ran through the first floor unit, out the front door into my car where I locked myself in. I called the owner. While I was on the phone with her, explaining what had just happened, I saw a figure emerge from behind the house at the end of the driveway and run off behind the neighbors. She showed up about 15 minutes later, and we both went back into the house. We didn't find anyone, but we did discover signs that someone had been living down there in the storage room. Wedged behind some boxes, we found a backpack filled with clothes, a prepaid phone, and some empty prescription bottles. We also found that the small, rectangular window in the basement had been pried open and busted off the slider. It's how they had been able to get in and out. The owner had the window replaced and the locks changed the next day.